What's up, everybody? What's up, world? This is exciting time, as you probably seen from all of our posts and all of our content. The AFCON 2025 is in full fledged. We just completed an entire week with nothing but soccer, and so now that almost most groups have played two games, and some of the heavyweight have already booked their spots in the round of 16, Egypt, Nigeria, Algeria, and maybe Ivory Coast to Cameroon. But for those of you that have already watched the game, the tie 1-1 game, know that now there is some team that have qualified and there's some team that are on the curbs of making to the round of 16. But before we go and talk to these about these teams that have already qualified, let's talk about some of the games that have happened recently. So one of the one very first one inaugural game that we all talked about, Morocco, Comoros was the grand opener. It all end up with the home team, Morocco winning 2-0. Then after that, Morocco played against Mali. For those of you that watched that game, you know there was a big contrast between what Morocco was playing like and what Mali. All we all know is that Mali definitely has showed up to that game and did not let Morocco run with it, which ended with a 1-1 win. And I'm sure there's a lot of bruises because Mali came in full fledged and had zero care of what they were doing. As long as they didn't get a red card, that was their game plan, and it worked. What it showed is that maybe Morocco will have to find a way to be a little bit more physical, but Mali came in and made sure that both of those teams ended up with 4 points each. So that means they are on the brink of qualifications, but their last game they will have to show up and show out. For Mali, 1-1 against Zambia, and Zambia actually had a 0-0 game against Comoros, which leave Mali with 2 points, Zambia with 2 points, and Comoros with one. So everything is behind Morocco's going into the final round, but also don't forget that second goes and third place get to go to another pool, which also give them an opportunity to make it. There's 8 spots of that, so there's many chances for them to make that happen. In Group B, South Africa versus Angola, 2-1 for South Africa, and Egypt won against Zimbabwe 1-0. And South Africa pushed Egypt all the way, but Egypt, as we all know, qualified for the round of 16 with 6 points. That was expected, but the Egyptian, the Pharaoh, did not qualify that easily. Questionable calls. We know we won't talk about that. There's a lot more. Plenty of discussion happens around the world about what a penalty, what isn't. And I think we all, to be fair, we all know what a penalty is, but there's too many rules behind them, unfortunately. So we'll just leave it at that. But South Africa is still alive, but likely will need a win against during the match day. Three to avoid relying on the third place. So we all know one and two make it happen, but second place also run the risk of facing one of the heavyweights. So it will be up to those teams to make it happen. Group C, Tunisia 3, Uganda 1, Nigeria 2, Tanzania 1. Those were some pretty good games at first, but as you can see, Nigeria was able to qualify by winning their back to back games. And strangely enough, Nigeria almost blew a 3-0 lead to a 3-2 to Tunisia. So it did not end as you would have thought. This is the beauty of AFCON. This is the beauty of what African soccer is. You never know until the referee says the game is over. And as well, Uganda 1-1 with Tanzania means there's still a lot to play with. And third place is always one of them that they could look for. So, second place will face one of the better team. Third place still give you a chance. All those teams have to do now is make sure that they allow less goals, but they score a lot of goals as well. So the point differentials, the goals differentials, and the goal against does not go against them. Group D, and as we know, That's the one that had Senegal questionable games, but the first one they won against Botswana 3-0, and then DR Congo went and played against Benin and won 1-0, which started the week with Senegal and DR Congo with 3 points. But then there was the most interesting game of this group, which was Senegal against DR Congo. We all know the history between those two. The game before last year was a game where DR Congo was leading 2-0, which Senegal came back and won 3-2. So there was still a little bit of that battles. And the second part was DR Congo has not beaten Senegal in almost 56 years. So the banters online were amazing. Great banter, great friendship. But the game ended up with 1-1 with a lot of Senegal struggle that was showed. But as always, it took a Parisian slash Senegalese slash French player that decided, hey, you know what? You just put me in late, and he helped out. And of course, our OG Sadio Mane made sure that it ended up with 1-1. At the end of the day, what it does is actually kind of open up a little bit of that group, and also having Botswana starting up the group. So that means Senegal is still in first place, even because they score a lot more goals, 2 goals differentials. DR Congo is likely to result second place, but one thing is that Benin is not going to let them win that game so easily. So they will have to show up and let us know all of the things that is about African soccer. And also, we go down to Group E. That one also, a quick recap of what happened last week. Algeria 3, Sudan 0, Burkina Faso 2, and Equatorial Guinea 1. As we all know in there, we also have a little MLS connections with Georgie playing for Burkina Faso, having a tie equalizer towards the end of the game, but also at the same time, he showed up to the entire world that Burkina Faso is here to play. And there was also a Traore that we all saw, or most of us have seen, play for Chelsea. Did not get the right opportunity. It was a little mess, but the captain has definitely showed up in those 2 games. And this week, Algeria and Burkina Faso played a one game. That also another very questionable um, penalty, but that's a whole nother discussion that hopefully once we have some of my friends joining in, we can go over and talk about. And as well, so that just led also Algeria to end up with 6 points and mathematically send them directly to the round of 16. But one of the biggest thing that happened, one of the best story I can say is that Sudan, even though with everything that's going on, political and all that on their side of the world, they still showed up to AFCON, played some ball, and ended up winning 1-0 against Equatorial Guinea. That means everything that we're talking about this AFCON, everything that talks about what soccer is all together is that no matter what it is within those first or last 90 minutes, soccer just takes every stuff that's happening around the world and you just have to concentrate, which is what Sudan kind of lift up and share something for their country to celebrate and have some positiveness, which was winning a game in over 13 years. That's right. 13 years since Sudan have lost won their last AFCON games. So that was one of those feel good stories in today. And let's pause for just 1 second. We'll be right back. And yes, we have a guest to talk about Group F, but also a quick recap of the rest of the game. So we'll be right back. Oh, looks like we have company now. It's Chris. How's it going, my friend?
Hey, what's going on, Mo? How you doing?
I don't know. We're kind of living in the dream. Just our very my ours my
Hours? Yeah,
very
yeah.
first Instagram live. So that's
Love it.
going. It's a fun one.
Mm.
And I was just going, a quick recap of last week, and this week's games. And you came at the perfect timing because the last thing I was talking about was the time that actually Sudan won their very first AFCON game in over 13 years. So, what is your thought about, you know, with all of the stuff that's happening in their home country, politics, and all of that?
Yeah,
What
I mean,
does
I think.
that kind of come up to you on that Sudan story?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's that's probably just a huge celebration, right? I mean, like first time in 13, like that's big, and and that alone, if you think about all that we've seen, there have been those types of shockers. There have been those types of stories, and I think that's huge. I mean, that is like a seed planted, right,
Right.
for future Afcons to come. Obviously, at least they still get another match day to see if they can build upon that. But that's big, Mo.
Yeah, and also, even though it kind of brings them back to the discussion, but it also technically they're not out of even for the second place
Right.
and the best third place. So there's still something for them to fight about, and there's something still to celebrate. So it's one of
Hmm.
those feel good stories of what soccer is beyond just kicking a soccer ball and winning games. And the last but not least of the groups of my quick recap here was that for Ivory Coast, gets the first game of that Group F. Ivory Coast play against Mozambique, which they won 1-0, and Cameroon beat Gabon on their opening games. And today, Mozambique made history with their 2-win over Gabon, which
Yeah,
it was different.
I did not see that
And
coming.
the biggest one of that group, which kind of closed out the week. You know, that was the Cote d'Ivoire versus Cameroon, which was a very big one too, um, and which pretty much takes is that they're all still alive, except for Gabon. Unfortunately, did not by losing two games, pretty much magically get them out. So for just that group, because there's a lot to digest on it.
Yeah.
So for the very first one, we have defending champ with Cote d'Ivoire. So what is your thought on like their progression by one winning just 1-0 against Mozambique and then having that thriller game with Cameroon to close it out?
Yeah, I mean, the revival, however you want to think about that. I mean, they've been doing enough to get through the rounds, right? They're a
Yeah,
strong side. We saw, what they possess. I made a comment in the chat about their crossplay. Seemed like a similar thing that we were watching with Morocco. I do think that, they have yet to have that one game that's like the runaway game, right?
right.
And perhaps that could come against Gabon. Um, I don't know if that's necessarily going to be like the one where the Ivory Coast fans are like, Ivory Coast is back, or whatever that looks like. What Nigeria's was the other day, right? Um, but I think that they need to convincingly win against Gabon on Wednesday, ultimately to essentially kind of make a point of what they're trying to do in the tournament. Because if they're only getting by a goal, it's I don't know, it's going to be kind of like the creeper group. You know,
Yeah, and I think it's one of those interesting, especially for like the defending champ. I think that was kind of having Cameroon was kind of a good warm up to see how defensively, because we know the offense will take care of that, but also
hmm
defensively how they can uh, have a more physical game versus a physical team, which Cameroon was. So it was like almost the perfect game to kind of show us what those the two powerhouse of African soccer can show us, and it certainly has have delivered for the last game.
I mean, remarkable story was the thought that Cameroon and Ivory Coast would be in the same group
Right.
for the most part, right? That was a little bit of what was talked about. The thought that only one in the past maybe would probably have advanced, but the fact that two could advance from the same group is a talk at that. Of course, you do have Mozambique that's going to be looking to have a really big day against Cameroon right next.
Uh, so yes, so
So
that will be one challenging one for them to see
mhm,
what they can pull out. Um,
yeah,
yeah, and especially and also the group F, which not a lot of people talk about, is that it was also very MLS and US soccer heavy. So the very first one was seeing Nuhu from Seattle
mhm.
Sounders. I don't know if you've seen all of the other discussions across the internet, but his name has come up like quite a lot as of like his performance in today's game,
Okay.
where I think he was pretty much everywhere, lockdown crosses, passes. They even called him like he was like the pure example of a captain. So he should have been like a co-captain, and so I'm talking like in Cameroon, in Senegal, in France, he was getting the praise of like how he defended well for Cameroon. What do you think is that impact for MLS, because he's been around Seattle for quite a long time, and having his name come up across the world as having such a great game,
I
can
think
that
that's
translate also MLS?
yeah. I mean, I think that's big. I mean, that sort of effort should translate back. Um, I think anytime you could take a player from MLS and they can have a big splash internationally, that's got to do something for their resume, right? And so um, I was thinking about it as you're asking the question because I think I was arriving to some of the same sort of a question to ask you, and that's
Right.
just so just really answering it, it's just like, yeah, I think it does a great thing for him in MLS. I think that you know is MLS necessarily just like boom, hey, we're all watching AFCON? I mean, I don't know,
I
right?
will hope
But
so. I mean,
yeah, you would hope
yeah,
that they are, right. But there's definitely the ones that are watching it because they love footy and they and they're tuned in. Maybe they're the ones that obviously have heritage, and so they're definitely tuned in. I would just hope that the tournament itself, not to mention the success that one could have in the tournament, would definitely just draw more of the eyes from MLS. I think that would be kind of my take on it.
yeah, and I think and yes, and I mentioned Nuhu, but also even though probably did not play as he would expect it to, which Bouanga, because unfortunately his team
Right.
Gabon did not make it, and we there's probably a long conversation of what could have happened. Maybe his team will have to see some of the pieces will need to maybe be rearranged. The other one was also Georgie New, which their his performance kind of brought him up when he was able to equalize the game, and also his story with losing an eye, which kind of show him what is possible, even though somebody can say you have to kind of quit professional soccer.
Right.
Um, and then we started to see, the I think the biggest one was the South African defender that's moved to Chicago Fire. He also had a great game against Egypt, um, and some of their counterpart in South Africa is like maybe he's too good for the MLS. Um, I think that's also great marketing plot, right? That shows
Right.
that a player was able to pick MLS, and now their countrymen are saying maybe he's too good for the MLS.
Yeah, I mean it's a good point. I mean, that just makes him just more desirable. It's a just a great marketing plot for him. So, I think more players want to have that, like I said, be said about them. Just having just an impeccable resume, regardless of where they're at. So this tournament definitely can, bring up players' performances and have them rise to the occasion. Maybe where they were at in MLS, maybe the drop off there, maybe it wasn't, on the highs, but then you come to AFCON and, there's just something different, right? There's just a different glare or appeal, that's gonna, like I said, make players play to the utmost best that they've played. So, yeah.
Yes. And before I answer the question that we have on Instagram as well, um, and you also cover quite a lot of USL, right?
Yes.
So, what do you think that USL could do or write on to kind of maybe put themselves in that stage as well? Because you know, yes, we know MLS because they have 8 players or so,
Right.
but AFCON could also be one of those great pathway or great way to say, hey, we also do have USL, and if you join, some of those teams, and then you are able to take some of those players to go to AFCON, then it becomes even a bigger publicity for USL. What do you think that's the opportunity that they're kind of missing out on?
I wouldn't say missing out. There is one USL player that is playing at AFCON. He's from Oakland Roots, and I'm trying to grab
Oh, did I miss someone?
his name. Let's see here. Let's see if I can get his name up. It's Bobosi. I think it's Bairuranga.
Oh,
And
I might have.
he's playing for Uganda.
Okay.
And yeah, he's a midfielder. So he is participating, and he is from the USL Championship Oakland Roots team. But the last Afcon from the USL, there was Alexi Swahi.
Okay.
At the time, he was playing for New Mexico United. Um, so he was playing for Comoros, and he got the call up. I don't know I think he got some time into one of the matches, but it was probably lower on the roster call sheet.
Yes, so you're right. So, Bobo C by Uganda. So,
Hmm.
you know what? I'll have to go and ask some of my guys that play Falkland Roots because I think now so maybe I'm missing out on a player that's actually making the USL that's currently in Morocco. I mean, and I think that's one of those great things, right? Just like me right now at this moment, just discovering that there's a USL player that's
Hmm.
actually there. And for someone, I guess, that maybe follows soccer very closely, I missed that part. So
Hey,
it's
it's okay. I got to get a shout out to Nicholas Murray over at USL Championship. He's like the main editor over there,
mhm.
and
Yes,
he and I were chatting about Afcon, and he did point out about Bobosi from the Roots, and so that let me know that he's tuned into Afcon,
yep,
at the very least for Bobosi's what his efforts have been and what his status has been, but also I think he typically watches a lot of different soccer, so he's probably tuned in for himself as well, just to enjoy it. So,
yes. So
but yeah, just a shout out to him. But
I'm gonna have to. Yeah, I think we've had a few connections. I might have to reach out to him and see how we can bring this up because that's what it's all about, right? The more players that coming from, I guess, overseas or that's representing some of those U.S. soccer teams there, I think that's what it all takes to kind of rise the profile of um, any leagues, pretty much. And if you watch a lot of these AFCON teams, some of those players are playing in third, fourth division of
mhm.
some countries that are not, say, soccer countries, but they
Right,
are still professionals and showing the skills they have. So then shout out to
sometimes,
USL. They do have representation.
yeah, sometimes some players are from these different countries in Africa, and yet they still kind of have more of their attention or their preference towards like the prem.
Yep.
They're still looking towards Europe. Like you could talk to them about Afcon, like, hey, are you excited for Afcon? And they're just not even on the same channel with you of mind. They're like talking about what's going on in the prem, and it's like, what? it's kind
That's
of a shock, sometimes, and
it's
it,
disappointing.
yeah, it kind of hits you like kind of differently. It's like, wait, what?
It's like you probably your favorite player is probably in Afcon as we speak. You just maybe did not realize it. But
Yeah.
but yes, and so I think we have a question. I don't know if you watched the Algeria game.
No, I didn't get to watch that one, but I'll probably go back and watch it. But go ahead.
Yeah, and if you watch, there's a young Algerian kid, Maza. I think I did a quick profile of him. He's in plays in Germany, and I think he scored one of those games against Sudan. First when they played Algeria play against Sudan. I think he's one of the under 23 kids that people keep an eye on. So think we'll definitely will, and I think he had the man of the match performance. I think if you watch some of the replay, you'll see
Yeah.
even though he didn't score, but he had like a back heel pass in the box, and a shot on goal, but it was straight at the goalkeeper. So I think
Yeah.
if he would have do that back heel and then scored, it would have been plastered everywhere.
Do you think that that's like a bit of the breakthrough of the younger players ascending into AFCON? Do you think that that's like, I don't know if that has been something that has been happening in the last two AFCON, but if it hasn't been, is that potentially something where it's like, hey, maybe there are the ones that are, that are in the division below that could kind of break in?
Uh, I think it's unfortunately for the Afghan, especially recently, they have not really shown like the young players because they almost, it's like the senior guys in the Afghan,
Right.
but you see in like the U20s, U23, U17 World Cups separately. That's
Right.
when you see the young guns coming up, but I don't think they have been selected just yet to make it to the first team. I believe the last person that was kids that had to make noises before he turned 18. That was Mbaye from Senegal, the kid that kind of dribbled through three players, had a shot on goal missed, and then Sadio Mane scored.
Right.
I think he's probably like the youngest one that they mentioned under the age of 18. But
Okay.
he also played for PSG, Paris Saint Germain, and he scored. So he's established enough, but he's still a young gun compared to the other teams that kind of use their more senior players
Right. That makes
at the
sense.
moment. Yes. So hopefully him and Maza from Algeria, those are the younger players that are kind of making a name for themselves.
Hmm.
But if you check them on in Europe, they're already well established. That's why they
Right.
can break through the first team.
Okay.
So that's the fun part. And yep, and I think that's what someone just say um, on Instagram that in AFCON teams usually prefer experience over future, which is weird compared to European national teams that trust the youth. So yes, pretty much that part now. But the more younger players show what they're capable of, I think that's where it will help them. But also, and then that's my fear of having it every 2 years, every 4 years, the move they're talking about. Now you're kind of missing out on that exposure of those kids because every 4 years. So that means if you're a 17-year-old in the
They're going to
first
age
one,
out.
the next cycle, you're 23, you're a grown professional player. And then your status of young player is almost out the question.
That's why you hope that they can break through in the African Nations League that they have just been kind of talking about that will pretty much replace their African Super League, right? So I mean,
Yes.
if that is still going to be a platform, if that could be one, because it'll happen a little bit more frequently, then maybe not we would miss out. But in terms of the AFCON platform, like you said, yeah, it would be they would not get to do it on that level. You hope that the African Nations League could have as much exposure, or at least some draw to it, the way that AFCON does. Obviously, we're not sure, right? We hope that people will just be watching African Nations League every time that it comes on, and that it won't just kind of blend in with all of the other sports that are happening.
Yeah, I think it may maybe dilute it just a little bit because AFCON has the historical meaning of winning AFCON versus the brand new shiny toy.
Right,
And so we'll definitely will have to see how teams that do not have the roster to be able to do the African Nation League, right?
right,
Because
and
we're
it's a ways away. So
yeah,
like, so many things could change. I mean, I was still looking forward to, African Super League, only to find out that guess we're not getting that.
they got crushed quick. Oh well, somebody's well, Coach Fritz. Yeah, I know I have a beard now.
Right,
We're trying
we're
to be
all
sophisticated. I tried to beat this guy, but clearly I need a few more months on that.
uh,
You know, but before you know it, when it gets a little warmer and start coaching again, this is goes away. I gotta show those kids I still have a baby face most of the time.
hey man, better you than me.
Hey, people think I'm much younger when I shave, so you know. But with that said, so now, so far we have there's quite just a few teams that have already qualified for the next round. The first one is Egypt, and then we have Nigeria, and then we have Algeria. They pretty much won both of their games, so that mathematically puts them in the round of 16. And then after that, those with strong qualification position. So that would be Morocco with 4 points, Senegal if they win or draw, and then after that, the winner of the Ivory Coast Cameroon will also join the list tonight. So they've already played, but it was a tie game, so that
Mhm.
means that it's off for the taking as well now.
Right, yeah,
So yeah.
it's a push towards Wednesday.
Yes. And so that brings up to the chaos that we all talk about, even in our chat and everything, that out of all of these groups, there's only three teams that already mathematically qualify for the round of 16.
Mhm.
You never know what's going to happen. Marco have 4 points. The other guys win one game and then, oh, it's on.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's still some possibilities there. I mean, Zambia, I mean, could still cruise in.
Yeah.
Like you said, Sudan, Benin, and then of course Mozambique. As like the best third place team. So I mean, and I told you, remember when I said like that one of your kickoff pod, I said, Zambia is like a sister city to Albuquerque. So I feel
Yeah.
like there's a part of me that's like, okay, I might become a small Zambia fan right now, just to
Why you
just to
got to be small? Just say you're a
give give
Zambia fan. Come on.
give them the vibes, man.
Yes.
Maybe
Hey, maybe one of them, someone's listening and they'll be like, oh, all right. All it takes is making one fan across the pond and then
yeah,
many will follow, right?
that's right. That's right. I mean, we the recognition of the brand, right, of the country here is huge. I mean, so you know, I mean,
One fan at a time.
it's all it takes. All it takes is
Yes.
just one.
Yeah, and also a quick recap of how teams qualifies as well. So the top two of each six groups will make it, and then third place team will go through on the pretty much that table that shows how many goals conceded, how many goals they've scored, and the differential will help them see who's going to make it there. So, and it looks like Mozambique has definitely helped himself by scoring 3 goals.
Right.
In that game as well, I guess Gabon. I think we had that in our stream. Do you recall one thing that kind of surprised you on that specific game, even though that pretty much kicked Gabon out of the tournament?
Mm. No, I think it's just I just expected them to do more. That's all. I think that was the big thing for me. I mean, it was looking that way. I just did not expect that come from behind situation.
All right, so we got Coach Pretz that asked, so who wins the tournament and Morocco? Question mark. And
Wow.
since you're the guest, I'm gonna let to you.
Well, look, foreshadowing, coach. I thought earlier that a Morocco um, Ivory Coast matchup would be nice.
Right.
I am not sure if that can actually work out. I haven't studied the table well enough, but um, at some point it would be interesting to see those two teams play if they could work out to be the final two for the cup between those two. Man, gosh, it's like you want Morocco to win because they're hosting it, and Ivory Coast definitely did fight to get their win
Yeah.
against Nigeria last year, or sorry, last time around. My bad. Um, but if it was between those two, it almost would be like bittersweet to see like Ivory Coast like swoop in and get like back to back Afghans. That would just be
Yeah.
really interesting. But you know, um, yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of in that it could be Morocco, it could be Ivory Coast. I know that's not clearly like saying who I think wins it yet, but I think it's between those two, honestly.
Yeah. Well, everybody, anyone that's followed me for just a little bit of what my videos, we know who I want to
I
win.
I know who you want to
Um,
it.
I think my dream final would be Morocco Senegal. Of course, Senegal win it, but I think that's the one that's my dream final.
Hmm.
Um, and I do know there's I have a few people that's says Algeria. I know, um, but I think that probably one of those close one, and I think that's probably the one that might bring more superstars than what we currently seen when we have you know Xiaomeni, we had what, Mbappe, we had Zinedine Zidane. Who else did I? All the African legends that you can think of or have been at this tournament.
Right.
I think having these two teams will be a heck of a final. But
Okay, so I sorry. So I kind of looked a little bit at the knockout table, just provided a couple things happen.
right,
Um, if the Ivory Coast can win their group, then you could possibly have the Morocco versus Ivory Coast. They would have to. Ivory Coast would be one F, and then Morocco obviously currently would be, so they're not, but could be one A, right? Um, from Group A. That would be a way that that could happen.
yeah,
But
and yeah, and in the comments, I definitely agree that yes, Morocco is supposed to be a contender, and I think maybe their games so far have not been the most convincing.
right,
But
that's true.
the way I see it, as well as even pretty much any tournament, is that typically the teams that run off in within their groups not necessarily win the tournament. You see sometimes like a little bit of adversity, or a little struggle during those groups that
Hmm.
kind of rally them to, you know, making a run. I think the most recent one we see is Argentina, right? When Saudi Arabia beat them, I think everybody was talking like the world just blew up. They're like, oh my gosh, Saudi beat Argentina. But it almost looks like it was that sort of that trigger to then let them to win it all afterward. So
You need
even
those
though,
theatrics.
yeah, so sometimes I don't, even with Senegal, I was not too happy how they performed against DR Congo. But then I went back and look when we won the AFCON, they got out of their group with only 5 points. And they went on to win it all. So that's kind of helped me cool off my, uh, you know,
Hey, look, they could be them too, right? I mean, if coach's question was, you know, uh, what team, if his net were a little wider, I would have said Senegal next, right?
yeah, the goals are only one specific size. So fortunately, we cannot make the net bigger or move goalpost because um, we've seen a few people do that as well. But so before we go to some of those breakout stories, before we close out, there's I don't know if you've seen it a little bit online. There's a few questionable things when it comes to like referees and questionable calls, probably for the past 3 or 4 games.
Yeah.
Um, I still have to look at are these like all new referees because like the first few games we were like even I especially were praising the referees. The last AFCON we were praising the referees from start to end,
Right.
but for these past few games, Saturday and Sunday, even a little bit of Friday, they've been a lot of questionable um, calls. Um, how do you feel about those, especially the impact that they've had? Because Egypt, it helped them win the game. Algeria today, it helped them beat Burkina Faso. So it been calls that completely affect a game.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about it a little bit in the chat. The referees can kind of make what is a very low pressure decision against maybe some teams that maybe are a little louder, right? And
Yeah,
so they can sleep well at night, and let it be played to chance. I'm sure there have to be other things going on in their mind. Yeah, we looked at the same replays as they're happening, and some things it's like, I don't know, I don't think that's really the call, but right, but they're looking at it, and there has to be things that are like calculating in their minds, like like we can make this call. This team's like not really too sharp, or chances are they did it right here. There's going to be a call down the other way, like they're gonna it's like a flip of the coin is what it feels like for reasoning, right? It's like, well, they're both going to get a call from me at some point. So if this is it, then this is it. This is the hardest decision I got to make. We see those games where there's so many PKs being awarded, and it's, obviously those things can like really impact a game, especially teams that should be already scoring on their chances, but
right.
the game outcome is left to a PK that they really appealed to get or really tried for. And it's just, I mean, it's part of the game, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that you know when the ref's decision can placate the outcome more than like the effort from either side, yeah, that part for me, just I just can't stand that person as a fan.
Yeah, I think for me it's those two calls. I think that especially the most recent one was the Algeria against Burkina Faso call. Um, what I saw the replays that even when he was advised to go to the VAR to look at it, he waved it off. And when I saw the replay, it looks more like a diving because you could see the player extending his leg, and when he's pulling his leg out, which was the Burkina Faso player,
Hmm.
then you see the other player is actually diving it. So the leg is not even extended anymore, but the Algerian players still did the diving.
What do you think?
But
What do you think? Just like swayed the ref to make that call, then, especially like,
maybe I think it was maybe more of maybe the referee not wanting to listen to VAR, which typically we're like, why are you looking at VAR? But I think this was some of those moments to where when the VAR say maybe you should check it
mhm,
and then you wave it off. I think that's why Bozil's that it, kind of boiled down to you got asked to go to check the VAR, you don't do it
right?
because it would have been obvious that it was. And I think I got a few of my buddy here that's actually part Algerian, and he just joked and he said he whiffed his shot, and the other one he fell because he missed the ball.
There you go. There's some
Yes, and
takeaway.
that's the Algerian kid, right? So and I watched it and I'm like, you see the Burkina Faso player, so he sees that he's in the box. So he's pulling. You see him pulling back. His hand is already in the air, like, I'm not touching him. But you see the player still diving. but he gets the call, and VR says you might want to check it, and he wears it off and still give the PK.
Wow.
So
Yeah,
so it's
I have to
one
go
of
back
those.
and watch that.
Yeah,
I'll have to give you my final take
yeah. So
after
you'll
I go
have to
back and
look
watch
it
that.
up, and you're like, I thought that when a VR says you might want to check it,
You might
I
want to check.
think you might want to go check it,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? So so I think I'm sure they will review it. I need to look at the previous referees from the first few games and the difference because I think the first 4 games there was no referee discussions, maybe one or two, and then the second half of the games, we all have like questions about it. So
Right,
hopefully that's when they all take a break, and then the lead referees maybe will take their assessment and say who's going next, because that's typically what they do is they review the performance and see, oh, you've missed such and such, and who's going to play next. I'll almost guarantee you that some of those referees will probably not doing any, you know, playoff and finals the way
right.
you have
Obviously,
so many raised questions.
yeah, definitely got to do that because I mean, some of it's probably pride, right? Some of it's
Yeah,
probably self pride. Like the refs,
yeah,
like,
they're
oh,
human.
yeah. I mean, right, it's gonna happen. It's gonna creep in. I mean, you could look at VAR for everything if you just weren't sure, but there's probably a part of it where it's like, okay, I need to be able to make calls. I need to be able to kind of see, I need to be able to kind of um, boast my quality as a ref, right?
Yeah.
But to your other point you just made, yeah, you definitely got to vet some of these refs when you get to these games that are going to really matter because if
Oh, they get
AFCON
vetted.
gets, yeah,
Oh,
because if AFCON gets hijacked from like bad calls like that, obvious like refs that have been doing too much or not doing enough.
yep.
Oof,
Oh, they get assessed because then they're pretty much the group stage for the referees is also their preview
evaluation,
for
right?
their to be able to do the playoff, and they still have to determine who has to do the final. So if you get a lot of complaint after the game, you get criticized by coaches, you get criticized by players, you get that means you most likely will not, even if you did right most of it,
Right.
most likely you won't get the final or the semifinals because they want their top performer referees for those big games, because as you get closer the impact is it's much higher.
Well, speaking about that, right? What kind of a final would you want to see? One where the ref lets the two teams play and there's not like instant yellow cards coming out, or I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
what's your take on that?
the referees that I like to see, right, is if at first you have to be consistent, right? So if you see 1v1 battles, and you just let them play as much, but then you start to see it gets rough, now you can make the calls, right? Or it's like, hey, I've warned you 1, 2, 3,
Hmm.
but you want to make sure that also the warning is 1, 2, 3 both sides, or call the captains and it's like, hey, this is what's going to happen. If you guys don't get your guys in line, after now, things will start flying. If you start early with a yellow card with something, a foul with a certain foul, and you give a yellow, you better make sure that this for the other team it is the same yellow, right? So it's
Right.
just you gotta let the teams know what kind of game you're going to expect from them early, so that way everybody else can kind of not complain when things get heated, right?
Yeah,
So that's
that makes sense.
and I think the old school referees, I forgot his name, the Italian referees, I think they always make fun. He was bald headed and his eyes was always like wide open. Way, way back, they would keep saying he was like straightforward to what kind of referees he was. So the players knew exactly what to do and what not to do for that referee.
Okay. Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
So set proper expectations and be consistent. I think that's the biggest thing people want, and be yeah, decisive. I think that's pretty much my call.
Okay.
All right, so it was like, so was the Senegal versus Congo game a good referee? Uh, I would say yes, because I think the referee for the Senegal and DR Congo let them play as much, and like I said, he was not the part of the discussion. It was a 1-1 game. We knew the history, but there was not much complaint about the ref. Um, so, and then there was quite a few big stories that happened in that week. Mozambique was their first AFCON win ever, which was against Gabon 3-2. And that was, I guess, probably their biggest story at this moment because, hey, a very first win in the AFCON says a lot.
Right. Well, and they still got a good chance to,
To double it,
you
yeah,
know,
you never
yeah,
know.
it could be the second top. It could be one of the top two teams in the
Yes,
bracket.
that'll be a heck of a story. And the other two, Comoros and Zambia, are still winless, but they've taken points. So that means they still have a chance to play the spoiler for the big nations
That's
in the
right.
final round. So they may have lost their first game, but they're still in it.
Let's go Zambia.
And also, and some of our say star power, Salah, of course, had that decisive penalty. Mahrez from Algeria, and also I think the biggest story for the young players that you were talking about is Ahmad Diallo from Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire. Did you see that one move that he did during the game? The two touch when he lifted the ball with his laces and then used the inside of his foot to lob it over the leg of the Cameroonian.
Yeah, I did see that. That
Yeah,
was that was,
that was
you know,
smooth.
yeah, it was very smooth. Like I got to thinking they were probably like, hey, you know, I wonder how that was taken. If you were the player from Cameroon, right? Like he's
That's when you level him after that. That yeah, as playing as my playing this, that's what would happen, right? You get beat once with a nice move, you handshake, knock your head like, okay, that's a nice move, but you're not gonna pass me the second time with the same thing because you gotta make a statement.
playing hacky sack over here.
Yes, yeah, that was smooth, and that's why then Wilfred Zaha came in. I was like, no, maybe they're trying to save him because you know score a nice goal, and then after that you kind of play with people. Those are
Yeah,
grown men.
yeah, exactly.
And then the last one was Cameroon and Nuhu with the MLS representing. Pretty much, his name was all over the place, which is a good thing for MLS and U.S. soccer. Even though he's Cameroonian, but he plays in an American soccer league. The more we hear the stories of players that played our league in USL or MLS, um,
Yeah,
will help us. I think it helps, and
yeah,
it helps the profile of those teams as well. Because I'm sure there's a fan club in Cameroon that follows Seattle Sounders because they have a player there.
yeah. I'm sure they've got a good amount of gear too. Sure, there's stuff getting sent back home.
I hope so. Hey, and you know how Africans, right? When they support a soccer team, no matter where they are in the world, they will get TVs together. They will have huge parties. They have when you have an African country or town or village that support your soccer team, you best believe they will go all out.
Yeah, that's awesome. It really is. I mean, I know Uganda. When we had Michael Azira playing for New Mexico United, I'm sure, there was definitely a lot of New Mexico United gear that went back to Uganda every time he went home. So, I mean, that very thing can be very true.
Yes. So, and just as we close out for the rest now, so what are you looking forward to the next drama of AFCON? Because there'll be a new series of games kicking off soon.
Yeah, so the next set of fixture, the match day 3 kicks off tomorrow. If I'm looking at tomorrow's fixtures, of course, I'm excited about Maba Mabalulu in Angola against Egypt.
Ooh,
Of course, that's one that I'm tuned into.
you want that celebration, don't you?
I really do want that celebration. I think tomorrow is a huge day ultimately for watching. Of course, South Africa, Zimbabwe. That's a nice one.
Mm-hmm.
Mali, Comoros. You want Mali to go ahead and just kind of, this is a big game for them. And then of course Zambia and Morocco. You know, Zambia has a huge feat in front of them to go against Morocco. Obviously the hosting country. Of course, so I think right there, that's huge. So I'm all in tomorrow. Um, Tuesday, if I'm looking at those, the ones that stick out, obviously, hey, look, I want to see what Senegal is going to do against Benin. Benin's still got a chance, right? So so that's going to be that's going to be one to watch. I know you'll be glued in. Um,
Yes.
of course, I think the other matches are good. I just think that one sticks out as one that we're really kind of looking at. At least I'm looking at. Of course, you can watch Nigeria and Tunisia. Then Wednesday, specifically, I know that I'll be hosting a party with about 25 football fans here in New Mexico,
Nice.
and we'll be watching the Ivory Coast Gabon game. And I know, look, Gabon, they don't have. I mean, they have their country to play for, but as far as like moving on, that's obviously not in the picture. And and it might be to a vote that day at the party if they still want to watch that match, or if they want to watch the Cameroon Mozambique game where it feels like there's something on the line. But we'll see what folks
Hey,
want to do.
maybe Gabon wants to be the party pooper and
Yeah,
finish the tournament with a win, and
it's still a good matchup. It
yeah,
really is, regardless.
just ruin someone's day, right?
Yeah. So those are the ones I'm really kind of looking at myself. What about you? What are you excited for match day 3 of the three days of
I think
AFCON?
mostly I'm looking for Senegal and South Africa.
Okay.
And Burkina Faso, which I guess coming up a little later the week. I want to see how those guys perform. The more MLS players I see playing, the better it is.
Okay.
Um, and also from Burkina Faso, hopefully I can see Osino. That's also plays in the MLS, but plays for San Jose Earthquake. I don't think he's had his time yet, so I want to see him also perform. Mamadou Fofana as well. So even though Senegal is top, but I want to see some of these MLS guys get their moment. Um, I think that's pretty much the biggest one that I have in mind, and I keep promoting. Especially, I know League 1 is getting their feast. That's why they're on the break as well. So that's pretty much covers it for me.
I have a follow up question.
Yes.
You made me think about it just now, but coming into this tournament, there was so much out there about the Premier League and about players being released, and and you know, I even saw something today. Mo Salah missing a big fixture for Liverpool because Egypt has advanced, right? And so
Yeah.
that those things kind of stick out. But just now, as we're talking, and even through this recap, the MLS with a big presence between the two um, um, American professional leagues, you know, that's kind of a nice draw. It's kind of a nice thing to think about because in the past it's just been a lot of players coming from the Premier League,
Yeah.
but now Division 1 is really putting more dogs in the fight, so to say. And and look, when the USL does launch their Division One, and perhaps we'll just say some future talent,
Right.
also has heritage, within Africa, you know, the conversation can flip on its head. It could be that there's more more MLS and more USL Division One or N Championship representation at times than more Premier League representation. So,
Yeah,
you know,
and I think that's the whole flip, right?
yeah,
And we know that the pathway of when people say Europe, I think it's an easy thing to say just Europe. Europe is
right,
big, but a lot of the top players we all know when they say Europe is like EPL League,
yeah,
some of the Spain maybe La Liga, but that's probably a little too technical, or the lower league, one or two. But to be realistic, if you think about it, especially the MLS or USL, right? So those are Division One leagues. If you think that the pathway to Europe is starting to be a little bit too clogged, why not come in the US? There's the same exposure. You sometimes have better infrastructure than a lot of second and third and fourth league in Europe. Why not come here and get yourself exposed and then possibly go to Europe afterwards? There's players that have done it here, then or have your agent do their job, right?
hmm
Now you're in the US, you have the infrastructure, you have the views. Um, MLS and USL, they're connected to the big channel, so that means if somebody wants to watch your league, they will see you.
hmm hmm
And I've seen USL; they have plethora of players from overseas. That's why when I start to follow a lot of the guys, I see Senegalese players, I see Algerian, I see Cameroon. That's been they're there. Maybe have not made it yet to the national team, but they
right.
are professional players.
Well, and the conversation is going to start to change. It's not going to be, oh, we're missing players to AFCON, right? It's going to be a great thing that these players are getting to play AFCON,
Yeah,
right? And there's going to be it's going to be like a huge. I think what it is these other leagues. It doesn't maybe feel like to them there's an ROI.
yeah, they're already invested. I
You know what I
mean,
mean?
yeah,
That they feel like they're getting anything out of it more than just maybe a couple social media posts, right?
yeah,
To kind of boost that they have some sort of tie to the Afcon, right? Other
yeah.
than
If
just
you think,
celebrating their player.
yeah, and if you think about it, just watch Nuhu, right? He's plays for Cameroon and Seattle. He just played with against Cote d'Ivoire, who has three or four players, three or four, five, maybe eight players that play in the top leagues in the world.
hmm
He completely shut them down. That should be something that says, hey, they just shut down Salah. Oh, he just shut down this, that. Ahmad was able to do just a few magical moments because he's Ahmad, but the rest he was able to shut down the current African champion, and his name is being said everywhere. I've yet to see it from MLS,
Right.
but everybody else in the African continent and part of Europe are saying his name. The South African player that shut down Mo Salah, the entire South African contingency are saying he's too good for the MLS. That is good publicity.
Right. Well, and if Seattle, and I haven't looked at Seattle's social media, right? But if they,
Yeah, they have a. I think they've been the most act. I think they've done more posts,
okay,
and I
so,
think also Charlotte FC's with Wilfred Zaha, but it has not been like those send off when the team's like, hey, good luck, and then they show video of them getting
yeah,
ready, or
yeah,
if somebody has a big game, then you see your club team will usually post it.
Right.
When Bai helped Senegal with that equalizer, PSG literally had 5 or 6 posts about
Wow.
him playing so well. I mean, if PSG has enough time to do it, which they're on the top of the world, I'm sure the small teams here just ride the train. I mean,
Yeah, because I mean they're not even in season, so
yeah,
there's plenty of time to make a couple extra posts.
yeah. And just imagine, hey, our players in the AFCON, he just shut down such and such. That means he's talking about his team when the journalist in Morocco at this moment ask him who did they mention first, they're going to say this player from this African country plays for this team in this country.
Right.
That's promotion that you cannot pay for.
Well, and I think that just goes back to what I was trying to say a moment ago, which is that the clubs that are invested in the player and and that are doing it like they're invested not because of what they're going to get out of it, but because they're truly celebrating, the player getting to have the opportunity. And because of that, they're boosting the player. They're
Yeah,
boosting. It's easier for them. But the ones that are like, well, I just need to post one post today to kind of stay active on Instagram, but they're not really seeing that the true opportunity, the value in like really promoting their player and really like just being locked in, then they're just missing out,
yeah,
ultimately. And so, and it leaves much to be desired. So that's why I'm saying you hope that you know the leagues, whichever ones they are, that they're locked in because of getting to see more footy from their player, and especially, like I said, USL, MLS not being in season. This is like bonus time. This is this isn't like your normal. We got to post every day, anyways. This is going above and
international.
beyond at this point.
Yeah,
So
and
if
your
they're
guys
doing
are
it, it's
playing
great.
international. I mean,
Yeah,
your players are playing the best of not only the continent of Africa, but the best of the world.
right. Like to your point. I mean, the gent from Cameroon, gets to play against Salah. I mean, when would you see that? If
Not
it
even in a
wasn't at the
friendly
AFCON, you're not anyone who the person who played at Seattle. When would you see that? Maybe if like
Club
Champions
World
League,
Cup.
maybe, or Champions League, maybe, right? Like maybe, but this is huge. The combinations are endless.
Yep, and you
So
gotta compete with those. Like I said,
yeah,
if your team gets a city, a country, a town, or village that says we are following you because of such and such,
hmm
your reach is berserk. There's people that have Arsenal, Chelsea, Manchester United in Africa. That's like a religion.
yeah,
So, but yes.
right on.
So hopefully those that are maybe watching, I know maybe some are watching, but maybe we're biased about it. But at the end of the day, is that tournament, if the rest of the world wants to ignore it, MLS or US soccer in general can take advantage of it because, yes, they're all also coming for the World Cup.
Exactly. Yep.
So, but yes. So, with that said, before we close out, um, is there anything special added? Or how about go and promote a little bit more of that event that you're going to, the watch along you're going to have?
Yeah. So Wednesday, New Year's Eve, um, Black Diamonds supporter group will be hosting a watch party. We'll be watching the Ivory Coast and Gabon game. It's going to be great because it's a opportunity to pull the footy fans together here in Albuquerque. That it's a chance for them to just watch football somewhere else. It's not the Prem like they're always watching, and it's not New Mexico United where we're always watching. But it's great because it is our New Mexico United family. It is our maybe outside of that, it's our Premier League families. It's our League Un and like Serie A. All of you're just a footy fan, so they get to actually watch AFCON whether they have a dog in the fight. I know at least one person who's coming who's from Ivory Coast, Fabrice. Got to shout him out.
Yeah.
So obviously that's going to be special for him. But for everyone else, it's just like there'll be neutrals. It'll be a great time, and so we're gonna do that. The brewery's gonna Tata B. The brewery is gonna open up for us specifically for this match,
Nice.
and we have at least 25 people or so coming, and maybe more after I put up the flyer.
That's a good party, and yeah, and now he gets to share with everybody else a little bit more of his culture as well,
Yeah,
and how crazy he is about the Cote d'Ivoire. So,
I'm looking forward to that specifically.
all right, so we're just building fans little by little, party by party, and I think that's the beautiful game of all.
Yeah, you
All
said
right,
it.
so appreciate your time. This was the very first live. So even though we had it on YouTube and everything else, but this was Instagram first. So let me know in the comments below before and after how you guys like it. If we should do this more often. I think this one is kind of a fun one, so a lot of our closest friends can see it. But I plan on doing more, even if you guys said otherwise. But with that said, appreciate you guys. Have a great week. If we don't talk again, Happy New Year, but I'm sure we will again. So, but with that said, have a good one, everybody.